Hey guys, and thank you for tuning in. Welcome to Let Your Shit Out with Jon and
Cyn. It's hot as shit.
Hey guys, welcome back to Let Your Shit Out. We have today with us Michael F. Schein. He is the author of the Hype Handbook, and he's also the founder and president of Microfame Media. Hi, Michael.
Hey there, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. So, as everybody knows,
Hey.
and that there's Cyn.
Sidekick that just gets forgotten.
Yeah. So everybody knows when we start this off, I like to find some kind of kooky or weird news, and this one came up in San Antonio. The Amber Alert was let off not once, but like 3 times that the Chucky doll had stolen his son from the seat of the Chucky movie. This is like true. But it says the Texas Department of Public Safety has apologized after mistakenly issuing an Amber Alert that said that the killer doll featured in the 1988 horror film Child's Play was a suspect in the kidnapping of his 5-year-old son, Glenn Ray, who was featured in the seat of Chucky.
I don't know why you think this is funny, because that's the most terrifying thing I can imagine, honestly. I'm offended that you're laughing at this. You know, child doll abuse is a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they did say that he was running around with a knife in his hand, just like in the movie. So that is kind of scary there
That's
too.
what I'm saying.
About.
So I went to space camp when I was 11 years old, which is pathetic, and it was horrible. And in the other room, there was a kid that they used to call Chucky, because he would turn the lights off and stab his roommates with a ruler. This was in like 1989, probably, something like that.
Wow.
I'm sorry. How much therapy did it actually take?
Yeah.
This was a sick bunch. I don't know. It was, don't go to space camp, kids.
Yeah,
I have to say, though, in fairness, I spent, and don't laugh at me for this because it's a true story, I spent 13 consecutive summers at summer camp. But the 13th one, I became a counselor in training, which means they stick all you in the cabin alone, and we just drank, and it was really bad. It was the first time I ever broke a bone. It was. They don't do that anymore, by the way. There's no more counselors in training at that camp.
Really? I thought that was the greatest scam ever. They would like get people to pay to like work for free at the camps.
Oh, yeah. I would have paid them for
Yeah.
it anyways. But the counselor in training, you have to have gone like so many years, then you get to go free for that. So that was 1 year free, but they just take all these campers and put them in a cabin alone with no supervision and go, oh, here, learn.
Sounds like fun.
They gave me. I went to a 4-H camp one time, and they had like all this stuff with motorboats and everything you're supposed to have. And there was literally like 1 rowboat and then like 3 broken arrows. That we had nothing.
I think there are about 9 people in the entire state of New York who go to 4-H.
Well, I was in Kentucky then, so
yeah.
Well, in fairness, I was in New York, so this camp was in New York, and it's still there and still going, but it's way up. Like the beach was on Lake Ontario, and you could see Toronto from it.
Oh yeah, that's really far up.
It was really fun in July when they said go swimming, and you're like, yay! Oh no, still cold.
But yeah, so I would like to know more about first off, the Hype Handbook. What exactly is it you are offering for the people out there with this?
So do either of you happen to remember a thing called the Anarchist Cookbook? No. Well, when I was in school, so apparently this guy in the 60s, the late 60s, who was like a self-styled revolutionary, he made this book of anything you needed to be a revolutionary or an anarchist. And it was published. It had like how to make a Molotov cocktail, how to make, drugs out of marigold seeds and get high, and it all worked. And it was a terrible thing because it got people killed, right? But I remember when we were in high school, we used to like pass it around, and it's still around and be like, oh my gosh, this thing is amazing. It's got like everything you need. And we never did any of this stuff. But I love the idea of that, not the fact that it was for violent acts, but that like this guy went to the most obscure sources and pulled together in one source this handbook for revolution. And so I wanted to do something like that, but for the cause of good. So I kept seeing people who were less than great individuals who were so good at drumming up so much enthusiasm around their bad and sometimes harmful ideas. And then I would see people who had the greatest ideas and the greatest products and all of this, and they just had this kind of attitude of like, my stuff, the cream will rise to the top. Like my stuff will gain an audience. And it just occurred to me that a lot of times, you know, it's not so much that the strategies and tactics of the bad guys are so bad. It's that they seem to see the world as a chessboard, and the rest of us are kind of like reluctant and we let our emotions get in the way. So I went out and looked at all of the best, I call them hype artists, you know, I don't call them marketers, but these hype artists. So propaganda, you know, artists, cult leaders, but even some good people. I mean, activists and certain kinds of benevolent pranksters and mischief makers. And I wanted to see, do these strategies have anything in common, and can they be deployed for good? And it turns out that they can. So it's a book that both simultaneously makes the case for why hype can be a great thing, and it also teaches you how to hype up anything that you need to hype up.
There's 12 types of things of hype, or
Yeah.
ways of that.
Yeah, well, what happened was, I mean, when I was looking, I mean, I read hundreds and hundreds of books and academic papers and interviewed people, people who were good in different realms of getting large numbers of people to form movements, take actions that they wanted them to take. And sort of the thought experiment that I put forth was, are these people just kind of good at this and they're all over the map in how they do it? And if that was the case, there's not really much of a book there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if there are commonalities, if there are certain strains and trends and you know, underlying principles you see time and again, well, that can be kind of mastered and boiled down. And it turned out there was. I mean, it turned out you would see these repeating themes over and over again. So yeah, I boiled it down. There really are 12 kind of tactics, strategies, principles, whatever you want to call it, that if you master them, you really can become very, very, very effective at getting large numbers of people to do what you want them to do.
Awesome. I'm in need of a very nice house cleaner for the next 24 weeks. So.
Is that a large number? You got to get like, you want like 1 million house cleaners to clean your house.
I figured the first one, I'm going to need at least 24 of them for each week, because after 1 week of me telling them how much they did wrong, you know.
you know, I know you're kidding, but you actually are hitting upon an interesting point, because a lot of times people say to me, isn't that just persuasion or influence? And I'll say, you know, there's overlap, but it's not the same thing. I mean, persuasion is, hey, house cleaner, you have 5 people that you could possibly work for. Let me charm you and show you why my, you know, house is a better house to clean and why you should take a job for me or buy my, you know, or I want to go on this vacation. You say to your spouse, come on this vacation. Hype has an overlap with that, but it's a little bit different. I mean, have you ever seen like the kind of transcendence that certain crowds have around a certain leader or a certain idea, and whatever that person says, they're just going to accept as true? Or, you know, or the kind of charisma that, I don't know, Greta Thunberg has, you know what I mean? I mean, she, you know, she's not just your everyday environmental activist. She's done certain things that get people that they'll do anything for her, right? So to me, it's about, whether it's online or offline, it's not just influencing someone to do what you want them to do. It's just generating this huge amount of emotion and excitement so that you can lead people in the direction you want them to go. It's a subtle difference, but it does matter.
All right, I have a question, and I know Jon and I make sure that we always say no religion, no politics on the show, because you'll piss off somebody no matter what. But given this current conversation and what we've all experienced in the last 4 years, what would you say was the number one thing that those who shall not be named did to hype up that crowd?
There's not one. He's the best in the world. I mean, he's the best hype artist. And again, Martin Luther King was good at these things too. But hype is not the same as lying. This is not the same as lying. This is not the same as deceiving. It's that human beings react to certain ways of framing language and framing various realities than other people do. So for example, It's funny that you mentioned that. One of the reasons that I wrote this book, I own an agency. I mean, it's a marketing agency. I call it a hype agency because I see differences between the two, but most people would consider it a marketing agency. And I was on a business trip and I read these really weird kind of books to learn about this stuff. And I was reading a book called The Crowd by Gustave Le Bon, which is this really old, it's like from 1895. It was the first crowd psychology book.
Okay.
And I was watching one of the first Trump primary debates, and no one thought he would win. And it said things in this book like, to get a crowd, crowds respond to meaningless language that is future focused and simple. Crowds respond to external signifiers of prestige. And when prestige is not available, money will do. And I'm telling you, I was like going back and forth between reading this book and watching this thing. And I was like, A, this guy's going to win. And B, we got to put these strategies in the hands of the good guys because the bad guys get them. No politics, but you obviously know how I feel. So yeah, he's the best. I mean, he's really good at it. At the same time, Thomas Edison was great at hype. Andy Warhol was great at hype. Martin Luther King was great at hype. There's no way he would have done those those peaceful protests and let his fans and friends and followers get beaten down like that if the media wasn't there. 0% chance, So the point is, people say things like, I don't want to do this stuff because Trump did this stuff. I'm not comparing Trump to Hitler, but I don't want to do this stuff because Hitler did this stuff. But what they're not thinking is the psychology is the psychology. So it's not immoral or moral. So why not use, it's just the way people respond. So why not use it for good and just take the content out of it,
Right.
Who would you recommend this book for, this handbook for, in like the general public? Who's looking to buy this, and how do you find it?
I know you're not supposed to say the general public, and it was written as a business book, so I mean, I mean, if you're just looking for an entertaining, like if it's like Stephen King, Danielle Steele, or the Hype Handbook, I don't know, I mean, it's not for pure entertainment, although I hope it's entertaining. I think it's entertaining. But if you're trying to generate attention or dollars around anything you're doing, I mean, it was marketed to a business audience, and I'm a business guy. I'm also a writer. I was a writer first. But I don't know, if you have a political cause, or if you have an art project or a novel or whatever, again, the principles are the principles are the principles. So it can really be applied to any of that. But it's certainly good for anyone in business who's responsible for, like, if your role involves getting people to buy and notice your stuff. So if you're the owner of the company, if you're in sales, if you're in marketing, I mean, if you're in accounting, it may not be.
What are some of the characters? You say there's people in the book. Are these stories about people that have learned how to hype?
The subtitle of the book is 12 Indispensable Success Secrets from the World's Greatest Propagandists, Self-Promoters, Cult Leaders, Mischief Makers, and Boundary Breakers. So I essentially studied all of those categories of people and took notes as I studied them, both through books, but also through interviews. And I, again, tried to group them into categories. So all of the strategies in this book are drawn from these people. So I illustrate a lot of them with stories. So yeah, I mean, I do talk about Donald Trump briefly, but there's everyone from the guy who founded the Nation of Islam, Wallace Fard, has a lot, there's a lot about him. Andy Warhol, there's a lot about him. I talk about Pussy Riot. I talk about Amy Semple McPherson. I also talk, though, about Thomas Edison and Richard Branson. There's a gentleman named Edward Bernays. Well, he's not really a gentleman because he's dead. But he was he was a gentleman. But speaking of smoking, he was considered the father of public relations. We were talking about smoking before this went live. And he is pretty much single-handedly responsible for women smoking. Women, it was considered completely uncouth for women to smoke before the 1920s. He created this thing called Torches for Liberty, where he had suffragettes walk down the street smoking to show that they weren't going to be oppressed by the shackles of men, and male oppression, and smoking was how they were going to show that. And women smoked after that.
Wow.
Yeah, he did it for Lucky Strike. He did the same. He did the same. He got Americans to eat bacon. People didn't eat bacon for breakfast. And he commissioned a study, which was sent to 5,000 doctors, that said that bacon is the perfect breakfast food from a health perspective because it replaces the energy you lose during sleep. So doctors were recommending bacon all over America for Beech-Nut, which was a pork producer. So people don't believe in conspiracies, and I hate conspiracies, but this guy makes you believe in conspiracies. It's crazy.
They're everywhere.
Didn't like the sugar company basically come in and do the same thing when they put sugar in everything we have now? Like they replaced I don't know, was it honey or something more natural? I don't even remember what they replaced. Next thing you know, sugar was like on everything.
And it's possible. I do know that corn syrup, because of the war, they've never repealed these subsidies that farmers get for certain staple crops. So corn farmers get massive subsidies from the government, which makes corn very cheap. So they're able to sell corn syrup at a much cheaper price to all these companies than sugar, and corn syrup's worse for you than sugar. So now we eat corn syrup in everything. Yeah.
Like, hello. I mean, we're going to kill ourselves with something one way or the other. Sugars.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess you just can't do something like, could you use the handbook to sell broccoli better?
Why not? This is not the kind of thing. I mean, you still need to use your creativity. I mean, one of the things I talk about is there are strategies in here, but you need to still, within the frame of those strategies, you need to conduct experiments. But I don't know, bacon is not a particularly, it's bacon. It's pork. I mean, it's cigarettes are a plant that you turn into ash that you suck into your lungs. So I don't know, the Jolly Green Giant was a way to sell asparagus that's still being used. I don't know.
There you go.
I know that one I can tell you. The Jolly Green Giant thing with the asparagus. And I think, John, we talked about this on a previous interview. When I did a marketing class in college, and I'm not going to tell you how long it was, but let's just say the number started with an 8. But one of the things our instructor brought up was all these canned goods, and the mushrooms on the front of the cans, they were the chopped like mushroom pieces, actually spelled the word sex. So like it was like a subliminal sales tool. And I was telling John before, I kept that can forever because I thought it was funny, and then somebody freaking ate it.
That's funny. You could have still kept the can.
I didn't know. I should have labeled it. Do not eat
it was completely ruined.
Yeah. In fact, it might have been better without the nasty processed mushrooms in it. Yeah.
The sex was completely ruined.
Yeah.
I know. If you had one word to ask somebody on like what they wanted to hype, what would you ask them? Like, what would you ask a potential client if they have a product to sell? What are you targeting for them to hype? The use of the product, or what the product is? The pain?
Well, I don't know how to answer it in one word, but I do know how to answer it in one question, because I ask that question to clients. Because if there's one strategy that's probably the most essential strategy, it's the idea that human beings are much more attracted to being against something than they are to being for something. Which is real. I mean, we can talk about why that is, but that's very, very true. And science has backed that up. I mean, and it could be being against an idea. It doesn't have to be against a person. So what I ask every client that we work with, and what I talk about it in the book, is what is a point of view held by other practitioners in your industry or in your field or in your corner of the universe, in your scene. So let's just say industry or field. What's a point of view held commonly in your field that you can't stand, that really irritates you? So there are often, in whatever world we're in, there are these points of view that are like groupthink that everyone just kind of assumes are the way things are without even knowing it. And a lot of times we secretly find it wrong or annoying, or we question it, but we just don't bring it up. If you can figure that out, that can unlock so many doors to you. I mean, even that's in some ways how I came up with my approach. There are all these marketing companies out there who, are all about A/B testing and data and what social media to use and building a following. And my point of view is, hey, all of those marketers are starting with the wrong thing. They're starting with the hammer and nails instead of the architecture. I'm against that. What I'm for is looking at ancient, deep, fundamental principles of mass psychology and starting there. And I'm against the other point of view because people sign up to these services. As long as I buy HubSpot, everything's going to be different.
No.
And right, but that comes from that mentality that if you figure out landing pages and figure out automation and figure out A/B testing, that you're going to just start selling all these products. And it's just not the case.
Right.
And I'm against that idea, but it's
No,
very commonly held. Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. Jonathan, what you got for me? You always come with the fun.
The meme of the week for this week is from a girl, and maybe it's a girl, but the name of it, their name is Jackie Brown. And it says, sometimes the universe puts you in the same situations again to see if you're still a dumbass.
I'm a dumbass.
Yeah, me too.
Dumbass.
Me too. Over and over.
It's funny, when you're driving down the road with somebody else and they leave the blinker on in the car and it just drives you bananas. So this, I don't know, it started in college, but now my girlfriend was notorious for leaving her blinker on, and it was like an 87 Monte Carlo where the blinker would go click, 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 click. You can hear it over the radio. So we started just looking at her and going, I'm a dumbass, I'm a dumbass, I'm a dumbass. Until she turned it off, and now I still do it. Poor Lil. I do it to her all the time.
I wish I could still hear the blinker over the radio. They should have never taken that away. How many times have I had the blinker on and it's like I'm playing music loud and it's, it's just going forever. I'm that guy. I'm the guy you hate.
You're the guy ahead of me with the blinker going, and I'm going, I'm a dumbass. He's a dumbass.
I'm that guy. I'm him. I am he.
All right. So when you get off your podcast right now, what is the next thing you're gonna do?
Well, today, I mean, I'm still working. I'm working on an article for Psychology Today, which I write, and then I have a client call. So that's not that exciting. This weekend, I started a martial art in the middle of the pandemic, which is really weird. So I'm going to be practicing that. Strange, but I was interested in it for a long time. It's a type of Kung Fu called Wing Chun. And I went to one class. Wing Chun. It's like Wang Chun. Everybody have fun tonight. But it was Bruce Lee's martial art, actually.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
Are you zooming the class?
Well, so yeah, I mean, I didn't think it would be possible. Mm-hmm. And but I had gone to one class, and so I emailed the Sifu, which is like the teacher. And I was like, listen, this is probably not doable. And she was like, well, there's actually a lot you can do, because a lot of it has to do with mastering movements and the forms. And it's very meditative, because one of the things is that you're supposed to relax in the face of, a conflict. So, yeah, when it was warmer, we went to her backyard and did it in a circle. Now we do it on Zoom. I do it by myself. I don't know what it's going to be like once I start getting punched in the head, but we'll cross that bridge.
Suddenly, it's not near as fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a guy who comes out in the little recreation area of my apartment complex, and he's always doing stuff out there every day. Like you can tell it's a really deep meditation type of a feel from him.
In all honesty, I really like it, and it has a lot of life lessons in it, believe it or not. Anyway, you were asking what I was going to do this weekend. I thought I'd do a little of that. So,
Jonathan, what are you doing? You're not in the city yet. Where are you?
No, I'm not. I'm still in St. Louis right now. Actually, there's a nice heated pool outside here that I'll probably go swim in a little bit, and then I have dinner with the in-laws.
I thought you said a pita. I'm like, what?
A pita. A heated swimming pool.
A nice heated pita.
A nice heated pita.
And Michael, you're in New York.
Yeah, I live in a town called Beacon, New York, which is in the Hudson Valley. It's an hour outside of the city. Kind of an artsy little town that the lead singer of the Psychedelic Furs lives in. So that's something. But I used to go to the city every week. I that's where even though the company is technically here, I mean, you know, all the action is in the city, and I lived there for a long time, but I haven't been there for 11 months because of, you know, the pandemic.
Yeah, when we started Let Your Shit Out, I could, you know, open up the window when you would hear everybody banging the pots and pans at like 7 every day or whatever,
Yeah.
and
It was
and the
very
different protests that were going down the streets. But
Oh,
then
yeah.
I think we're coming back by the end of February, so I'm excited, but also gonna hate giving up the extra space and a heated pool outside. So, so Michael, thank you for coming on. Again, everybody wants to check out your book. You can find it on.
Well, certainly Amazon is the best place in the pandemic. I mean, if your bookstore's carrying it, I'm a big supporter of bookstores, but things are a little crazy right now. So Amazon is great.
Cyn, love you. Michael, thanks.
Here we
Get
go.
to it.
I wore a special shirt and you can't even see it. I have to show it to you guys.
Okay.
And I'm gonna try to get this where it won't fall over.
You can have me chest,
You can have me just.
but leave me booty alone. That reminds me. Do you remember that Beastie Boys song where it's like, "What's another name for pirate treasure?" I think it's but booty. Booty.
Booty. All right, well, thanks for coming on. Let Your Shit Out.
Bye, guys.